As you walk into the Great Hall, the first thing that you will see is a massive cutaway of a tunnel, with the nose of a great big engine sticking through it. This is the unmistakable Eurostar. The National Railway Museum is very lucky to have this particular engine, as this was one of the first engines to cross through the 32 miles of underground, which is known as the Channel Tunnel. The museum made a true-to-scale model of just one of the 3 tunnels that run through the channel between Dover and Calais. 2 are of the same size, and one smaller tunnel runs between them, designed for ascension pressure and maintenance. Many people assume that this is the only reference to the Channel Tunnel that the museum makes. However, at the edge of the hall, right along the back, you'll find an extra little addition. There, sitting behind the impressive locomotives, you will find a construction truck and car that were integral to the completion of the tunnel. Unlike many of the engines that are spotlessly clean and tidied, this unassuming truck and engine still contains the rust and the grime from the digging and loading and moving the tons of waste that the boring machines created. The spoils just from our side alone increased the landmass of the UK by 90 acres, and trucks like these moved on average 4.3 million cubic metres of earth. It's pretty impressive given the size of the locomotives. So what about this tunnel? The idea of having a tunnel between the UK and France has been around for centuries. In fact, there was talks about making a tunnel with gas lighting and with horse and cart to be the main source of power. One tunnel would take the passengers, while another tunnel below it would take the groundwater. Of course, this was pretty impractical given the technology of the time, but the idea lingered. In 1975, it looks like everything was given the green light to start the project. However, it was suddenly cancelled. But due to long talks, the project was finally started in April 1987. And in 1988, work began. The 2 sides used giant boring machines that not only cut away at the chalk and dirt, but also applied concrete to the newly drilled site and circular concrete supports to help keep the tunnel's shape. By using laser-guided precision and careful cutting, the 11 boring machines used were only 32 centimetres out of centre from each other, and they finally met. On the 30th of October 1990, the French and English were joined with a handshake and the exchange of flags as the world's media watched. Soon people started walking between the 2 countries for the first time in 8,000 years. It was a little known fact that when the tunnel was built, Margaret Thatcher, who greenlighted the project, wanted originally for this to be a road tunnel. She envisioned hundreds of cars travelling between Calais and the UK and back again, like an extension of the motorway. However, that project was shelved due to safety fears, particularly in the event of a fire or an accident within the tunnel. Today, plans are still being considered for a secondary tunnel with this purpose. However, it's very unlikely that these plans will ever come to fruition, especially after the accidents and fires in the tunnel in 1994, 1996 and 2008. So let's have a look at the Eurostar locomotive itself. It is number 3308 373 electric locomotive with a top speed of 208 miles per hour. This in fact is yet another world record holder. The locomotive is what is known as power car and picks up power from the pantograph on its roof. It was constructed in 1995 and to date there are only 9 power cars in service. 3308 was withdrawn from service on the 7th of August 2015 and was preserved with 5 other locomotives around the world. It is hard to say exactly how many times this particular power car went through the tunnels, But when you consider that there are over 100 trains per day, that's a lot of journeys. But this power car may have undertaken many, many miles on its clock. Today, we kind of take the Eurotunnel for granted. Thousands of tons of freight, passengers, cars, lorries and bikes are ferried between the two countries every single day. So much so that now we don't often give it a thought into the tireless construction and the years of planning it took to get to the step. But we must also consider the human cost of this tunnel, as 10 workmen died completing the project. Both the locomotive seen at the entrance to the North Sheds gives a prominent message of the pride and power and sheer size of the two tunnels. And I think that the simple trundling truck and its locomotive, still covered in its muck, tells a completely different story of how one little thing can help create something so big.